I'm 34 now. Until last year, I worked as a senior IT project manager at one of those tech giants that grind you into the dirt but pay just enough to keep you from quitting. I held that job for nearly a decade, even though it was never what I truly wanted. When I was younger, I dreamed of launching my own video game studio. But dreams gave way to reality. I was making around $110,000 a year, plus bonuses, most of which vanished each month thanks to my ex-wife Stella. She's 32. We met 7 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. You know, the type drop-dead gorgeous, razor-sharp wit, and the kind of confidence that makes you want to win her over. Back then, she was working as a marketing consultant, managing Instagram content for small boutiques. It barely paid her bills. Meanwhile, I was making about $85,000 and had just bought my first condo. In hindsight, I think that condo was what first caught her eye. The first couple of years were relatively stable, though far from perfect. Stella constantly griped about her job. She felt her degree in feminist studies wasn't respected and blamed the patriarchy for holding her back from her dream career. While she vented, I buried myself in work 60 to 70 hours a week, extra projects, weekends just trying to build a future. Especially once she started pushing for a house in the right neighborhood. No matter how hard I worked, it was never enough. If I got a 5% raise, she wanted to know why it wasn't 8%. If I brought home flowers, she'd compare me to a friend husband who whisked his wife away for surprise weekend getaways. Her need for more money, more upgrades, more status became endless. We got married after 18 months. Her parents paid for a small ceremony, or so I thought. Turned out my $15,000 contribution covered nearly all of it while they took the credit. She insisted we sign a prenup. Ironically, she had a $30,000 trust fund maturing at age 35 and wanted to protect it. Naively, I agreed and even paid the legal fees to draft it. Things went downhill fast once we bought a $575,000 house in the suburbs. I put in $110,000 from the sale of my condo. She contributed nothing but still made sure her name was on the mortgage indeed. What's yours is mine, she joked to friends. But I wasn't laughing. The house, much like Stella, was high maintenance. Within months, she demanded a $40,000 kitchen renovation. Then 6 months later, she insisted on a $25,000 master bathroom overhaul. I had to take on more work, more consulting, and put vacations on hold just to fund her Pinterest-perfect lifestyle. My parents noticed the toll it was taking. During one rare visit, my dad pulled me aside and quietly asked, "Are you really happy?" While Stella always had an excuse to skip family gatherings, I used to tell people I was simply exhausted from work. But the truth was, I felt suffocated. Living with her felt like constantly walking on eggshells. Everything in our lives had to align with her preferences, from the furniture we bought to the friends we kept, even down to where and how we vacationed. She dismissed my college friends as childish, called my coworkers soulless corporate drones, and treated my family who lived far away as if they were an afterthought. Meanwhile, her friends were, in her words, inspiring, successful, and evolving, and deserved lavish dinners at upscale restaurants. Her family, too, demanded frequent visits and thoughtful gifts. And Stella expected me to bankroll all of it, while offering constant emotional support for her ever-changing dreams. By the 3rd year of our marriage, Stella quit her marketing job to find herself. That journey came with a hefty price tag. There was the $2,500 pottery phase. Then she decided to become a photographer, racking up $4,200 in camera gear. Next came a $3,800 interior design course. Finally, she rebranded herself as a wellness influencer on Instagram. Fast forward to last June, I had just been promoted to senior project manager, overseeing a team of 12 and a project portfolio worth around $25 million. It meant more stress and longer hours, but also a salary bump to $128,000 with quarterly bonuses. Stella, on the other hand, had cycled through 4 different jobs, none lasting more than 8 months. At that point, she was between gigs yet again, her 3rd period of unemployment during our marriage, while trying to grow her wellness brand, which had 1,200 followers and brought in maybe $200 a month in affiliate income. Our daily rhythm had become predictable. I'd wake at 5:30 a.m. to squeeze in a workout before starting work at 7. Stella, meanwhile, slept in until 9 or 10, then spent her day scrolling through social media, posting content, and taking selfies, usually with products she convinced me to buy. While I lived off sad desk lunches between endless meetings, she posted aesthetically pleasing meals paired with captions about nourishing the body and rejecting the so-called toxic hustle culture. One weekend, my boss Keith invited the management team and their spouses to his lake house about 2 hours from the city. I've been pulling 80-hour weeks for 3 months straight, and this was both a reward and a networking opportunity that could benefit my career. Stella spent the entire drive complaining. The BMW 5 Series was too cramped. The weather was too hot. My music playlist was basic. I kept reminding myself how important this weekend was, but her negativity didn't let up. When we arrived at Keith's lakefront home, a stunning property with a dock, 5 bedrooms, and luxury finishes, Stella immediately bonded with Liza, Keith's wife, and Ember, the 29-year-old wife of another manager. Within an hour, they were laughing like old friends. During their chat, Stella casually dropped references to luxury brands and wellness retreats, speaking as if our life was filled with indulgence and elegance, none of which reflected our actual reality. At one point during the weekend, while I was on the deck getting drinks for Stella and Ember, I overheard their conversation. "God, I don't know how he does it," Ember said, referring to me, though she called me Ray instead of Ryan. I noted the mistake, but what stung more was the tone, like she was questioning my work ethic or personality. Stella responded with a condescending laugh, the kind I'd come to loathe over the years. Ember, lowering her voice, added that although I earned a good salary, I seemed incredibly cheap and had recently suggested she get a real job instead of relying on her personal brand. Stella mockingly chimed in, referencing past relationships and ex-partners, trying to paint me as some miserly, outdated archetype. I stood there frozen, 2 sodas in hand, realizing that the woman I had spent 5 years sacrificing for was now reducing our marriage to little more than a convenience, a self-imposed house arrest to secure her financial comfort. Over those years, I'd given up nearly everything. My health, my free time, my dreams, and even gained 30 pounds from stress and late-night binge eating, just to keep our life afloat. And there she was, laughing at my expense with someone she just met. The most crushing part, it wasn't the first time. 3 months earlier, at brunch with her cousin, Stella had casually joked, "Marriage is like putting yourself under voluntary house arrest, but with better food." I stayed quiet, internalizing every word. And before that, 6 months earlier, when I had suggested we think about starting a family, she looked at me like I was insane. "Let's not add more bars to the cage, honey," she said flatly. I don't remember much after those words. But somehow, I managed to get through that lake house weekend with a fake smile and just enough small talk to seem normal. Inside, though, something had snapped. Standing on that beautiful balcony, imported sodas warming in my hands, I made a decision. If Stella saw this marriage as a prison, then I would set her free. But she would learn that freedom always comes with a cost. The drive home was filled with her usual complaints, criticizing Keith's wife Liza for flaunting her renovated kitchen, grumbling that the lake house sheets weren't up to standard, and complaining that while others got 5% raises, I had only received 1.3%. "We really need to talk about your career trajectory," she remarked, eyes glued to her phone. Keith had mentioned a director role opening up next year, and Stella immediately began calculating how that could bring in $170,000 annually. With that kind of money, she said, we could finally renovate the patio and build that natural pool she wanted. I nodded, gave the expected responses, but inside my thoughts were racing. The situation was no longer sustainable. Ironically, the prenup she had insisted on meant to protect her future $30,000 trust fund also protected my retirement accounts and the assets I had brought into the marriage. But it didn't cover everything. And since we lived in a community property state, she was entitled to half of our shared assets. Unless, of course, there were no shared assets left to split. That Monday, for the first time in 3 years, I called in sick. While Stella went to a $120 brunch with her Instagram circle, charging it to our joint credit card, I made 2 critical calls. The first was to Travis, my old college roommate who now worked as a divorce attorney. The second was to my bank to start taking back control of my finances. Hearing Travis's familiar voice after so long brought a wave of comfort, even though we had fallen out of touch mainly because Stella had labeled him a bad influence for enjoying his single life and career freedom. I filled him in on everything that had been happening. After a brief silence, he said, "Man, I'm sorry you're going through this, but you came to the right guy." He explained that the prenuptial agreement was actually working in my favor. Stella couldn't touch my 401k or the down payment I'd made on the house, but everything else could potentially be considered community property. He stressed the importance of documenting everything meticulously. Act normal, he warned. Don't confront her or do anything that looks suspicious, especially with money. Courts don't look kindly on that. That same afternoon, I opened a new account at a different bank and began collecting detailed records. Every contribution I'd made to joint expenses, major purchases, and most telling of all, screenshots of Stella's social media posts where she made disparaging comments about her marriage. I also saved screenshots of flirtatious exchanges with someone named Julian, who, as it turned out, had a significantly larger online presence than I'd realized. I documented the 4 new designer handbags she had purchased just last month, despite her constant claims that we needed to cut back on spending. For the next 6 weeks, I lived a double life. Outwardly, I was the same overworked, attentive husband enduring her complaints with forced patience and continuing to fund her endless brand partnerships, which somehow required new outfits and frequent salon trips. But beneath the surface, I was carrying out my exit strategy with the precision of a project manager. Phase 1. Financial separation. I redirected my next paycheck to the new account, leaving just enough in the joint account to avoid raising any red flags. I carefully calculated my monthly contribution to our mortgage and shared expenses, an average of $4,650, and deposited that exact amount into the joint account. Phase 2. Documentation. I legally installed a small recording device in the living room. Our state only requires one-party consent. Among the recordings was an hour-long call between Stella and Ember, in which Stella admitted that sacrificing passion for stability was slowly killing her soul and claimed that I wouldn't even know how to satisfy a real woman's needs. Phase 3. Rebuilding my network. I began reconnecting with old friends Stella had pushed out of my life, starting with Davis and his wife Maggie, the couple from the wedding where I first met Stella. It turned out that last year Stella had tried to convince Maggie that Davis was cheating, a manipulative move that backfired once Davis learned the truth. Over lunch, Davis told me that Stella had once suggested I was controlling and jealous, traits that didn't match anything he had ever observed. Maggie recalled Stella showing her jewelry store receipt as supposed proof, which was later revealed to be for a gift Davis bought for his mother. That was the moment I started to fully understand who Stella truly was. But the real smoking gun came unexpectedly, courtesy of Liza, Keith's wife. She forwarded me an email that Stella had accidentally sent to her instead of Ember. In it, Stella outlined her exit plan. She would wait until I received the director promotion next season. Once my salary reached at least $175,000, she planned to file for divorce. The email even detailed a secondary bank account for her business one I had no idea existed, and included conversations with a divorce lawyer who specialized in securing maximum settlements for women claiming financial abuse. I immediately forwarded all the evidence to Travis, who replied in disbelief, "Man, this is better than anything we could have hoped for." As I continued piecing everything together, I uncovered just how deeply Stella's lies ran. Her so-called networking meetings were nothing more than shopping sprees. That business conference in San Diego? It was at the same hotel where her ex, Julian, happened to be a featured speaker. She even dipped into our emergency fund, pulling out $3,000 supposedly for a medical procedure, which actually paid for Botox and facial fillers. The breaking point came when I found a separate credit card I had never seen before, with statements showing over $12,000 in charges accumulated in just 8 months. The purchases were mostly luxury clothes, spa appointments, and weekend trips I wasn't even invited to. I felt like I was living with a stranger, worse, a parasite masquerading as my wife. Then came the perfect opportunity. Stella announced she'd been invited to an exclusive influencer retreat in Sedona. All expenses were covered by the resort, she claimed, except for $1,500 in incidentals she needed to pay up front. I played along, feigning excitement and support. "Don't worry about the cost," I told her with a smile. "Your brand is growing, this could really pay off." She hesitated at first, maybe sensing something, but then her face lit up. "Well, finally," she said, "you're starting to get how this influencer thing works. You invest now to earn big later." The irony of that moment nearly made me laugh out loud. As soon as her flight took off, I got to work. I'd taken a full week off, the first real vacation I'd had in over 3 years. In just 48 hours, with the help of Travis, Davis, and 2 movers, I executed the final stage of my plan. I paid everything in cash and moved all my personal belongings to a secured storage unit, carefully documenting and photographing every household item, along with matching receipts. I also installed security cameras at key entry points, following state law to the letter, including placing visible warning stickers. All joint credit card account passwords were changed. And anticipating pushback, I scheduled a private meeting with Keith to explain the situation and ask for his support. After reviewing the material I presented, Keith confirmed something I'd long suspected. Liza had told him Stella had been prying for specific details about my salary and benefits package. Eventually, I obtained bank records proving Stella had been secretly transferring between $750 and $1,200 a month into a private account for the past year and a half. The kicker: that money came directly from my deposits. She hadn't contributed a cent. By my count, she'd funneled over $19,000 out of our finances under the guise of household expenses. With all the evidence in place, Travis filed the divorce papers the day before her return. Along with that, he submitted an emergency petition citing financial misconduct, requesting an immediate freeze on all joint assets pending further investigation. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, granted the order within hours. Following Travis's advice, I avoided returning home and checked into a hotel for my own safety, both legal and personal. "People get unpredictable when they feel cornered," he warned. For the first time in years, I slept soundly. No nightmares. No cold sweats. It felt like I'd finally taken off a 100-pound weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. And then shortly after landed back home, the first call from Stella came in at exactly 8:47 p.m. Her voice was strained with panic as she asked, "Ryan, why is there a notice on the door? And why doesn't my key work?" I kept my tone even and replied, check your email. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls, texts, and voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. I didn't respond to any of them, remembering Travis's firm advice: no direct contact. All communication would go through our lawyers. From the flurry of messages, it was clear what had happened. Stella had come home to find the locks changed, with a legal emergency order and a formal notice of the divorce proceedings waiting in her inbox. Her texts quickly spiraled into rage. You can't lock me out of my own house. This is illegal. Answer the phone, coward. You'll regret this. At 11:23 p.m., she sent a final chilling message. Psychopath. You won't get away with this. I immediately forwarded that one to Travis with a simple note. Exhibit A, threatening behavior. The next day, Davis called. Dude, Stella is absolutely losing it, he said. She'd been calling mutual friends, claiming I'd had a mental breakdown, drained our accounts, and abandoned her. She even told Keith I was embezzling company money to fund a gambling habit. I couldn't help but laugh. Keith already knew the truth and had helped me document her hidden finances. Later that night, Stella showed up uninvited at Davis's house around midnight. Maggie refused to let her inside as she sobbed loudly in the driveway, waking several neighbors. She ranted about me for nearly 2 hours and even asked to borrow $2,000 for legal fees. Davis and Maggie offered her the couch for the night, but nothing more. Something that didn't sit well with her. She left in a fury the next morning, angry they hadn't taken her side. Friends and colleagues began reaching out, reporting similar stories. Stella was calling anyone who would listen, spinning a narrative of betrayal and painting herself as the innocent victim. She even contacted my parents, claiming I had become paranoid, controlling, and possibly unstable. My father, ever blunt, shut that down with one sentence. It's about time, son. She's been draining you for years. 3 days later, the emergency hearing took place. Stella arrived flanked by a divorce lawyer known for defending women with reputations for financially exploiting their partners. They came in prepared for war, accusing me of financial abuse, abandonment, and controlling behavior. It was clear she had been coached. Her demeanor was calculated. Gone with the designer labels and perfectly styled hair. She wore a plain dress, minimal makeup, and had her hair pulled back in a ponytail, carefully projecting the image of a wronged, emotionally battered wife. But they hadn't anticipated Travis's thoroughness. With quiet precision, he dismantled their narrative. He presented a timeline backed by hard evidence. Bank statements revealing Stella's secret account, timestamp recordings where she belittled our marriage, screenshots of flirtatious messages with her ex, and the infamous email to Ember laying out her plan to leave me after my promotion. Sworn affidavits from Keith, Liza, Davis, and Maggie corroborated her manipulative behavior. Credit card statements told the story of unchecked spending, despite her lack of employment. And finally, proof she had consulted not one, but 3 divorce attorneys, all while I was working late nights to keep us afloat. The judge, who had appeared neutral at first, removed her glasses midway through Travis's presentation and looked directly at Stella. Mrs. Reynolds, she began, are you familiar with the concept of divorce planning? That is, secretly preparing to exit a marriage while continuing to benefit from it and intentionally increasing your partner's financial burdens in the process? When Stella's attorney attempted to interject, the judge shut her down immediately, her tone making it crystal clear how seriously the court viewed such conduct. Stella, now teary-eyed, tried to justify her actions. I was scared. I was just exploring my options. I never thought I'd actually go through with it. She claimed I had always been financially controlling and that she needed to protect herself. But the evidence told another story. The judge referenced one particularly damaging message Stella had sent to Ember. Just 2 more years until his director promotion, and then I can divorce him, get half of everything plus monthly support. His income should be close to $180,000 by then. These weren't the words of someone who was unsure. This was calculated planning. By the end of the hearing, the judge upheld a freeze on all joint financial accounts, ordered Stella to fully disclose the origins of her secret bank account, granted me exclusive use of the house pending the next hearing, and required Stella to cover her legal expenses using her own funds. As I exited the courthouse, Stella was waiting. Despite her flawless makeup, the rage and disbelief on her face were unmistakable. She started to approach me, but Travis stepped in, saying coolly, save it for your deposition. A few minutes later, while Travis was speaking with the clerk, Stella took the opportunity to slip closer and hissed under her breath, Ryan, this is insane. Most of that stuff was taken out of context. We can still fix this if you stop attacking before more comes out. It didn't have to be like this if you hadn't tried to drain me. I replied calmly, it's all in writing, Stella, your words, not mine. In that moment, her entire facade collapsed. The tearful victim gave way to the calculating woman I had come to know too well. Her voice turned cold as she spat. You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of. I made you and I can destroy you just as easily. I simply smiled and said, "Careful with the threats, Stella. You're still in a courthouse." Her lawyer appeared and quickly pulled her away, whispering something into her ear. Stella shot me one last look filled with venomous hatred before disappearing down the hallway. Word of what happened spread quickly through our social circles. Two competing stories emerged. In Stella's version, I had suffered a mental breakdown, maybe triggered by job stress or substance abuse, and irrationally locked her out while she was away. My version, supported by hard evidence, painted a different picture, one of calculated betrayal, manipulation, and a planned attempt to secure a more favorable divorce settlement while maintaining ties with an ex. The most unexpected ally turned out to be Ember. We met for coffee one afternoon. Newly married herself, she admitted that Stella's toxic outlook on marriage had deeply unsettled her. "Imagine your husband having someone like Stella in his ear every day," she said. "What would you do?" Then she handed me dozens of messages, screenshots of Stella, boasting about how easily she could manipulate me. Among the messages Ember shared were seemingly minor remarks like, "Ryan thinks the new Peloton is for both of us, but I just played him so he'd pay for it," along with more pointed comments about using my money to cover a $900 car repair. On their own, these may have seemed trivial, but taken together, they painted a clear picture of ongoing, deliberate deception. Her messages and emails revealed that Stella hadn't just been dishonest about money, she'd been lying about nearly every aspect of our relationship, including weekends she claimed were for business but were actually spent with her ex. 2 weeks after the initial hearing, Stella's lawyer requested a settlement conference. By then, her confident facade had noticeably crumbled, especially as three major factors emerged that devastated her legal standing. First, the prenuptial agreement Stella once insisted I sign, which I never imagined would be so crucial, ended up being my safeguard. That document protected my retirement accounts, the down payment on the house, and all accrued equity. It also stipulated that the accounts in my name remained solely mine. Second, the discovery that Stella had been secretly siphoning funds from our joint finances severely undermined her credibility. And third, her documented divorce planning and financial manipulation convinced the judge that a fair division of assets didn't have to mean equal. The final settlement offer from her lawyer was almost laughably one-sided for her. She would retain her personal bank account, which had around $2,300, keep the car I had fully paid for, and leave with her personal belongings. No alimony, no share of the home's equity, and no future financial support. Travis, my attorney, assured me the offer was actually generous under the circumstances. "With what we've presented," he said, "the court could order her to reimburse you plus legal fees." I agreed to the settlement but added one condition. Stella would sign a non-disclosure agreement, legally preventing her from making any negative public or online statements about me. Her brand would have to find new material. The divorce was finalized quickly. I sold the house for a $110,000 profit, bought a smaller place closer to work, and took a month off to recover from years of emotional strain. The change was transformative. With Stella gone, along with her constant criticisms and unrelenting demands, I began to rediscover who I was before the marriage. I picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends, and dated casually, mostly as a way to rebuild my sense of self. In 6 months, I lost 35 pounds, the weight I'd gained from years of stress eating, and began therapy to understand why I had allowed myself to be manipulated for so long. I also repaired my relationship with my family. No more fabricated emergencies or disruptions orchestrated by Stella to keep me away from them. "You're yourself again," my mother told me during my first visit home after the divorce. "We missed you." She was right. I felt in control, lighter, like I'd finally taken my life back. Today, I'm the director of special projects with a base salary of $172,000 and an annual bonus of up to 30%. I didn't just lose the initial 35 pounds, I dropped another 15. The company sent me to London for 6 months, complete with a generous housing and travel stipend. As for Stella, her wellness brand collapsed. Several brands cut ties with her after she went on an unhinged Instagram live rant, apparently intoxicated, criticizing women who settle for mediocre men. According to mutual friends, she moved back to Ohio and now lives with her parents, working as an assistant manager at a mall boutique. I had nearly forgotten Stella existed when a message came in. "Ryan, I know it's been a while. I've been doing some reflecting and realize how much I took for granted. Can we talk? Just for closure." I ignored it. 3 days later, another message. "Heard about your promotion and the move to London. So happy for you. Always knew you'd go far." Then, a week after that, "My mom has breast cancer. I'm going through a really hard time and could really use a friendly voice." Against Travis's firm advice, I replied with a short message. "Sorry to hear about your mom. Hope she gets the care she needs." That tiny crack opened the floodgates. Stella called immediately. And again, against my better judgment, I picked up. "Ryan, thanks for answering." Her voice hadn't changed. What once sounded warm and charming now felt like a siren. It's so good to hear you. I cut to the chase. What do you need, Stella? She gave a nervous laugh. Maybe just to talk to my ex-husband. But since you ask, I'm kind of in a bind. Predictably, her story unraveled quickly. Her parents had lost money in a bad investment. Insurance wasn't covering her mother's chemotherapy, and that once untouchable trust fund from the prenup? Nearly gone. I'm only making $16.50 an hour. No benefits. My car's dying. I know things didn't end well between us, she said, her voice dipping into that familiar tone she used when angling for pricey gifts. But you were always a good man. The best I've ever known. What exactly are you asking for? $35,000, she said, to cover my mom's treatment and help me get back on my feet. I could pay you back when I find something better, or maybe we could work out another kind of arrangement. Her gall was almost impressive. Another arrangement? I'm still in my prime, she whispered. You always said I was the most beautiful woman you'd ever known. I could move to London for a while, help you get settled. I couldn't help it, I laughed. This was the same woman who once called our marriage a prison and meticulously planned to take me for everything. Now she was offering herself as some sort of live-in consolation prize. Listen carefully, Stella. There's no money, no reconnection, no arrangements. Why? She asked, trying to keep her tone light. Because I don't hate you anymore, I said. I just feel nothing. And your mom's medical bills. Not my problem. You made sure we stopped being a family. Maybe hit up Julian in San Francisco. I hear his startup's doing well. She gasped. That was private. Nothing was private, Stella. Real partners don't keep secrets. And we were never real partners. I was just your walking ATM. She broke down crying real tears. Maybe, but more likely because her last hope was slipping away. Then the tone flipped. After putting up with your boring intimacy, your obsessive work hours, and your constant need for validation, you owe me. I stayed calm. I paid my debts the day we signed those divorce papers. Then I hung up, blocked her number, and sent the transcript to Travis for documentation, just in case. 2 days later, Davis called. You're not going to believe this, he said. Stella's reaching out to everyone for money or a place to stay. She even called Keith, said she had dirt on the company and on him. Keith recorded the call and handed it over to his lawyer. She just violated the NDA. You could sue her, Davis added. And I considered it. A part of me wanted to return the favor to crush her financially the way she had tried to destroy me emotionally. But in the end, my freedom, my peace, and a life I had rebuilt were worth far more than any revenge. I told Keith, thanks for the heads up, but it's not worth pursuing, and moved on with my life. My girlfriend, Amelia, a pediatric surgeon I met at a charity gala, couldn't be more different from Stella. She's grounded, kind, and refreshingly free of entitlement or obsession with appearances. We're planning a hiking trip through Scotland during my next break. Sometimes I reflect on the irony. Stella spent years crafting an image of success on social media, using our marriage as a prop when it suited her and painting me as the villain when it didn't. Now, at 32, she's working retail, living with her parents, and watching from the sidelines as I thrive without her. My therapist believes Stella's recent attempt to reconnect wasn't really about money, it was about control. She couldn't handle the fact that I got out and rebuilt myself. Then I found peace without her. That's what really eats at her. Success is the best revenge. For trying to claw her way back into my life and failing, that's just the icing on the cake. The other night, while Amelia and I were on a video call planning our hiking route, something clicked. The prison was never the marriage, it was letting someone convince me that my value depended solely on what I could provide. Escaping that mindset was the real liberation. I found true freedom in being appreciated for who I am, not just for what I earn. In having a partner who views love as a two-way street. And in finally recognizing my own worth. As for Stella, her GoFundMe for her mother's surgery barely scraped together $250 in 3 weeks, mostly from distant relatives. In the description, she blames those who promised to love in sickness and in health for abandoning her. Even now, she can't resist rewriting the story to suit her narrative. But it's not my story anymore. I served my sentence, and I'm never going back. Dear listeners, if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss future updates.